Our chaplain, JT. Please come forward.
Would bow your heads with me, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today. We ask for your presence in this meeting today, Lord. We ask for your guidance and for your wisdom to be upon all of those that have to make decisions here today, Lord. Father, let it always be in the forefront of our minds, Father, that we represent thousands today that couldn't be here. They're out working and doing the things that they need to do to tend to their families. Father, I just lift up our city manager's office and their staff, our council members and our mayor and our city attorney's office and their staff today, Lord, as they bear so much responsibility for the management and care of this city. Lord, we give you thanks today for the rain. It's blessed so many. It blesses our agriculture and our farmers in the area. And also, Lord, I ask that you be with those who might still be displaced from their homes. Lord, you're with us when the rains benefit us, and you're also with us when the storms ravage and do damage, Father God. And so we give you praise and glory in all of those moments, Father. Lord, I also ask for favor and blessings today for Teresa and her birthday and all those that are sharing birthdays today, Lord. We give you praise and glory and honor. And Lord, it really truly is an honor to represent our city, Father. Keep us humble. Don't let pride be an issue. Let us work together, and we pray for unity in this community, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
With that, we will ask that Archer Hurt, Emery Hurt, and kindergarten Inara Hurt please come forward to do the pledges. I might have mispronounced one name. My apologies, but you'll correct me when you come up here, okay? Why don't we come right over here?
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
It was short because you were fast. With that, we have two pledges today. The first one will be our proclamation of June 19th, 2019, as Juneteenth 2019 Celebration Day. I'm sure I have folks in the audience who'd like to come forward as we read the proclamation and accept the proclamation. Grab my hip. President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation September 22, 1862, to abolish slavery and grant freedom to black slaves in the United States. The effective date of that law was January 1, 1863, preceding the 13th Amendment, and the ratification of this amendment December 6, 1865. Union General Gordon Granger took over the state of Texas using military force of more than 1,800 troops to enforce the Emancipation Proclamation, arrived in Galveston on June 19, 1865. General Granger read Order Number 3 to the countless slaves who gathered, which in part read, quote, "The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. The San Angelo Juneteenth Committee has consistently recognized June 19th as the Emancipation Day in the state of Texas and considered a day worthy of remembrance and celebration in honor of their ancestors. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of June as African American Heritage Month and June 19th as Juneteenth 2019 Celebration Day in San Angelo, Texas, and invite everyone to join in learning and celebrating these special contributions to freedom and equality. In witness whereof, I have set my hand and have caused the official seal of the City of San Angelo to be affixed this 4th day of June, 2019. Like
On behalf of the Juneteenth Committee, we would like to thank the Mayor and the City Council for issuing this proclamation. We thank you, and we also invite you, everybody here, to come out and be in our parade. This is going to be the biggest parade that we've ever had. And we're going to have some great food. So if you like good barbecue, cold drinks, and watermelon, come out to our festivities. And at this time, I'm going to ask my chairman of the parade to come up.
I would just like to say on behalf of the Juneteenth Committee, we would like to express our appreciation to the mayor, to the council and to the city of San Angelo, the recreation department, the police department, to the citizens of San Angelo for the assistance that you've given us in putting on this momentous occasion. As President Raff said, this will be the best Juneteenth that we've ever had, and we would invite you to come out and to help us celebrate. After all, in San Angelo, it's a community celebration, and as Reverend Crowder used to say, we do it better when we do it together. Thank you. The parade will be on June the 15th. It'll start at 10 o'clock. We will line up in front of the Old Carver School, and we're asking people who are going to be in the parade, be there about 9:30 or 9:45. I personally will be there to line you up. You don't have to send in any reservation, anything. Just show up. Y'all come.
Thank you. Let's get a great picture together. Come on.
Thank you so very much.
Our next proclamation will be as National Homeownership Month. Do I have people in the audience who would like to come forward and receive this proclamation? Come on, the more the merrier. In recognition of June 2019 as National Homeownership Month, we would like to take the time to celebrate and promote the modern American dream of owning a home. The National Association of Realtors President Elizabeth Mendenhall says, quote, "Homeownership changes lives and enhances futures, and many Americans see it as one of their greatest hopes. These individuals are counting on the nation's 1.3 million realtors to champion and protect homeownership and help make it more affordable, attainable, and sustainable. According to the San Angelo Association of Realtors, the average market price is up 22.3% from last April 2019. We would like to see San Angelo succeed and thrive in this market and continue to offer new and old residents a great place to live and work. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2019 as National Homeownership Month in San Angelo, Texas, and call this observance to the attention of all of our citizens. In witness whereof, I have set my hand and have caused the official seal of the City of San Angelo to be affixed this 4th day of June 2019. Please, come
Okay.
on.
Thank you. Okay. So on the behalf of the San Angelo Association of Realtors, we really appreciate the mayor and the city council for offering this proclamation to us. Home ownership is the American dream, right? So, and it's also the best way for the average American to build wealth. So it's a great thing. Every American strives for this. So thank you again for this proclamation. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Anybody else like to speak? All right, then let's gather together. At this point, we will open up the meeting for public comment. Issues or items that are not on the regular agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, begin by stating their name, and limit remarks to less than 3 minutes. Council members may request that a discussed item be placed on a future agenda. The council takes public comment on all regular agenda items during the discussion of those items. Do I have, starting with Billy, anything you would like pulled from the consent agenda? Oh, I should say, wait a minute. Did anybody have a public comment? Sorry. Guy, please come forward.
Morning, Mayor and Council, Mr. Valenzuela. Guy Andrews, I'm the Director of Economic Development for the City of San Angelo Development Corporation. We don't often get to know exactly who's watching us on TV, but recently I met a very lovely lady that just turned 93 years old that watches religiously not only City Council but the Development Corporation board meetings. She's also still actively involved in our community with the Railroad Museum. And unfortunately, in the recent tornado, as she was taking shelter, she was injured in that process. So I would like to say to Nadine Johnson, happy birthday, belated. Get well soon. Thank you for your interest and service to the community of San Angelo. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy birthday, Nadine. Do I have further public comment? With no further public comment, now we will go into the consent agenda, and I will ask, starting with Billy, anything you'd like to pull from consent agenda, Billy?
Yes, Mayor. I would like to pull item E and item N.
E and N. Lucy?
Aye. Item
Aye.
I.
Harry? Tom?
Nothing to pull.
Tommy?
No, ma'am.
With that, we will exclude items E, I, and N from this vote to approve the balance of the consent agenda items. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with, so moved by Harry, is there a
Second.
second? Second by Billy. Any public comment? With no public comment, we will approve the consent agenda with the exception of item E, I, and end. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Consent agenda approved. We will now move to item E. Consider awarding WU-0619 Martin Luther King Boulevard and 3rd Street valve replacement and water main repair to Darnell Construction, LLC in the amount of $501,716.25 budgeted for purchase fiscal year 2019, and authorizing the city manager to execute any related documents. Allison, you're here. Okay, Billy?
Allison, could you perhaps walk me through, my memory's not what it normally is, but I don't remember as a matter of routine that we have on consent agenda replacing water mains in different parts of the city. So I'm wondering why this is on the agenda, if it has something to do with the amount that we're going to have to expend there, and just help me as well as citizens at home to understand why this one is costing so much.
Yes, ma'am. So at MLK and 3rd Street, we have an intersection of two very large water mains. We have an 18-inch main and a 20-inch main that come together, and they actually connect to each other in that intersection. What we have is a leak there at the intersection between those two water mains. And so people may have noticed the coned-off area in that intersection for quite some time. We had to put a set of plans and bid documents together for this repair. We can isolate that section or that intersection with those two water mains to make the repair, but we would unfortunately put out a very large portion of town out of water. Specifically, there's a clinic in that area, McDonald's, Starbucks, Julio's, you name it in that area, and we would put them out of water, and not just for a couple hours, for several days. So what we had to do is we have to have line stops installed on both those water mains due to their size. And basically what that is a temporary valve that shuts the water off of that water main and allow us to get into that intersection and make that repair. We'll be replacing some of the 18-inch cast iron main as a part of this project, and hopefully in a future project we can continue up and down MLK and eventually into Randolph and replace this 18-inch water main. But because of those line stops, that is what drives the cost of this project. It's probably about half the project. It will be the line stop installations on those water mains.
So those line stops will allow the businesses and residents in that area to continue to have water without interruption as we repair that? Am I understanding
yes,
that correct?
Yes, ma'am. We hope that we can isolate just that intersection, and so we shouldn't have anybody without water during that time period.
Okay. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Any other questions for Allison on this item? Then may I ask for a motion to approve item E?
Motion to approve item E, Mayor.
Okay, seconded by Lucy. Any public comment on item E? With no public comment on item E, we will take a vote. All those in favor of approving item E, say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, motion passes 6-0. We will now move into item I, which is consider resolution authorizing the adoption of the 2019-2024 capital improvement plan for the city of San Angelo. Hi, Tina.
Hi, good morning, Mayor. Tina Diersky, Director of Finance. Was it Lucy that
Tina, my question is, I have had a lot of constituents from District 4 wanting to know about the MLK restroom. So when I was looking at this last night, it wasn't at the top. So what I wanted to know was, how do we get it to come up or to be brought up to high priority?
We depend on department directors usually to submit these projects, and then we compile them into this report. And when we go to look at capital needs and equipment replacement needs, and in fact, we're actually going to talk about those things at our next meeting as one of our budget topics, we usually ask our managers and directors to prioritize the projects that they've submitted and help us help you basically decide on priority levels for the projects that are in the CIP.
So that's all we're doing today, is just considering.
Yes, ma'am. We wanted to make sure we had the CIP adopted in this meeting before we went to talk about prioritizing and actually funding some of the projects that are in it.
It is required of us that we do approve the capital improvement plan before we go into budget session. So, yes, Harry?
Just to follow up on that, I have also had many constituents in the community asked me about prioritizing this. I really would like to see Carl and that group move this up to the 1920 instead of the 2021. The second item out there, and one that we've already said that we want to make a priority, we've got to do something with the drainage in this community. I know that the rains that we've had in the last week, 10 days, are somewhat unusual, but the bottom line is there is water running through people's homes, and we've got to figure out a way that we can address that.
Daniel, you might comment on the master plan for drainage that is being worked on as we speak.
We actually we had a presentation with Shane actually about probably 4 months ago, and it talked about the drainage master plan that we'll be bringing forth for approval, because the plan we had actually dates way back to 2020. So we want to, I mean, not 2020, yeah, 2010, I'm sorry.
2010.
Or 2000. But regardless, we want to make sure that we update that master plan, because back in 2010, we did have the ordinances for drainage that were approved. So we know from the year 2000, when the actual the plan was actually assembled, in those 10 years, really we didn't have a plan in place to address drainage until 2010. So we do know that the city did develop over those 10 years. So we need to do everything we possibly can to look at where we are with our drainage. Are there projects that we can look at, like regional detention ponds, that actually be a lower cost to the city but still address a wider area? So those are the type of things we're looking at that Shane will be coming forth and presenting to the City Council for approval in the future. But again, that's something that will be addressed. And absolutely, we did have a lot of rain, especially Sunday. It was very unusual.
And unforecasted.
And so the sky opened up, and there's some areas that showed about 7 inches, 7.5 inches of rain. So what we experienced was the equivalent of either a 25-year rain event or a 500-year rain event, depending on where that water fell. So when we receive that much rain, really, even the drainage infrastructure that we have in place just cannot handle that much rain. So it's very unusual. We received a lot of calls, a lot of emails, but those are things that we want to work through. As Harry mentioned a while ago, we do want to make sure that we develop a plan, but again, we want to make sure that we have a good master plan in place before we start spending money. We want to make sure we allocate that money toward projects that will have the biggest impact.
Were there further comments on this item? Did I see somebody else's hand? I thought I did.
Well, I guess I always need to plug streets, so I know that's going to be a part of the process. I'm with Harry. We got to do something about our drainage and our streets. So that's coming, I realize. So let's don't forget.
And remember, it takes money to do that. So it is a matter of finding the money to do the projects. But most importantly, I think we've got to have a master plan, whether it is in terms of drainage, number one, because if we don't deal with the drainage issues before we deal with the street issues, we're wasting our time and money, and I don't think we need to do that. So we look forward to this master plan for drainage. Do we have a time frame when it will be presented to City Council?
I will ask Shane if, as far as the time frame, he's sitting there.
Well, Shane's been very busy lately, so I'm sure his ability to work on this has been impacted by the rains and the storms. So no pressure, Shane, but when is it going to be done?
So tell us what you've been doing, Shane.
Mayor, Council, we're planning, hopefully we're going to bring the recommendation for the actual engineering firm that's going to conduct the drainage plan for us, and hopefully bring that to you hopefully by next meeting at the first meeting in July at the latest. Bring that selection to y'all for approval, and then once they start, hopefully within about 6 months time frame, we'll actually have a completed plan and be able to bring that to you for adoption.
So basically, we're looking at the beginning of 2020 before that plan will be available, because July is like,
yes.
Okay, so we're looking
January, February time frame for completion.
Okay,
that's kind of where we're hoping, and actually we're wanting to somewhat do this in phases to concentrate based on some of our street design that we have going on right now, specifically College Hills. Try to do the project in phases so we can actually incorporate some of these, hopefully some of the design and mitigation efforts that can help and aid in the design of the College Hills project that we have in design right now.
And I remind everybody to shop local, support local, save local, because it's local dollars that help make these projects happen. We need those sales tax dollars to provide funding for these projects. So, with that, Lucy, did you have a
No, I was just going to move to approve item I as presented.
Okay.
Second.
With a motion and a second, do we have any public comment on item I? With no public comment, we'll take a vote. All in favor of approving item I, say aye. Aye. None opposed. Motion passes 6-0. We will now move into item N, which is the second reading and adoption of an ordinance amending the budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2019 and ending September 30th, 2019 for new programs and capital improvements. Tina, you're on.
Billy, you had a question?
Billy?
Tina, my question on that is, I noticed that there was $250,000 noted for storm damage, and I'm thinking that was the tornado that went through the Bradford addition. It's why we're amending the budget for
Yes,
that
ma'am.
amount. And
Yes.
so what specifically would that cover, the $250,000?
Can I
was-
ask Shane to come up here and?
Yes, but it was part of it was
But
the
it is-
tree removal, the debris removal, the processing of cleaning the chipping and hauling the storm debris.
Shame and I
But
you have
that's
to come
just
up
a
here,
big
yeah.
picture.
Bring your chair up here, Shane.
Council, yeah, exactly. As a part of the cleanup efforts that we had, of course, a ton of storm debris, not only at the Coliseum site, but also out at the lake site as well, too. So this is covering the debris removal, the chipping of all of the brush debris, and also the partial hauling of the materials once we got them to the staging areas to get them into the landfill as well, too.
Okay, so it doesn't cover salary, overtime, or anything like that? It's strictly for the debris removal?
It's just for the contracted work that we had performed. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
and is that with Republic Services that we contracted with?
No, ma'am. We
No?
had the contract with. I'm trying to think of the. I
Hercules
know the name of the
and-
contractor, but I'm trying to think of his company. But it's
Okay.
Compact. I can't remember off the top of my head the name of the company that we contracted with for the brush and brush chipping and debris management.
I drove through that area last night, and, you know, it really has cleaned up well, aside from the damage to the individual homes, you know, the yards, the streets. They did a good job of clearing that area
It's-
out.
and-
When you look at the amount of debris still out at Lake Nasworthy or Knickerbocker Road, and it's hard to imagine that much tree damage and debris.
Yes, ma'am.
It's
And I
overwhelming when you
still
see
have
it.
and I still have crews going throughout town picking up limbs and brush debris throughout town. So I still have crews out still picking it up. So we're not through yet.
Thank you, Shane. I move to approve this item.
Second by Lucy. Public comment, please. With no public comment, we will take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, motion passes 6-0. We will now move into the regular agenda. We'll start with item A, amendments to plans and agreements. 1, consider a resolution adopting an annexation plan for the city of San Angelo. 2, consider a resolution amending the City of San Angelo Comprehensive Plan by amending the annexation program map. Item 3, consider authorizing the city manager to execute amendments to the interlocal agreement between the city and Tom Green County, providing for subdivision regulation within the extraterritorial jurisdiction. And John, you're making the presentation.
Thank you. John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. Just a little bit of background. The city adopted an annexation plan, or updated it back in 2009. There have been some changes in state law that specifically defines what an annexation plan is. And so we basically have to change the name of what we're calling our annexation plan because we don't intend to annex any areas that are required to be in a formal annexation plan per the state. So the first item of the three items that you're looking at today is simply adopting a resolution that says the city of San Angelo is not intending to annex any properties required to be in an annexation plan. And so the second item that you're looking at is what used to be our annexation plan. We're renaming our annexation program. And that's basically showing those areas that we think may likely the city may expand into over the next, we're looking 20, 30, 50 years out to ensure that we're appropriately planning for the long term. I didn't include it in this presentation, but we have a map of how the city has grown over time. And if you compare the boundaries from 1920 or 1950, the city, to continue and grow and develop, the city has to expand. And so that's part of what we're looking at here is ensuring that we can continue to grow and expand. And so, again, this updates that annexation plan. In some areas, we've shrunk it a little bit. As an example, we had in our annexation plan the state park, and we don't see any reason that that would be necessary to pull that into the city limits. Also, some areas out near Twin Buttes. That's another area that we excluded, as well as some areas that are completely developed already, some of the large lot rural type development, the whole subdivisions that have been developed, some of those we've excluded, but we've also pulled in some areas, in particular along what is the potential interstate corridor, to make sure that we're including those within our annexation plan so that we have the ability to grow into those areas if and when an interstate comes to town. The other thing that prompted this at this time is the city's extraterritorial jurisdiction, the area we have some regulatory authority outside the city limits, is currently 3.5 miles. Once we officially hit 100,000 population, which we expect to be in the 2020 census, that will, by state law, automatically jump out to 5 miles. And so when we get to the map, you'll see, if you just imagine that not quite doubling, but extending quite a bit out. In discussions with the development community and with the county, we didn't feel like we wanted to maintain that control over the entire ETJ. The main thing that we have within the ETJ in terms of regulation is the subdivision ordinance. We regulate and oversee the division of land in that area. Again, back to the issue of helping ensure that as we continue to grow, once the city limits gets into that area, we do have adequate property records, we have adequate or the potential for adequate water, sewer, roads, and all of that. That's the things we look at in the subdivision process.
You did have and meet with the development community, COSA DC, Guy Andrews, Michael Looney, to make sure that anything that they're in discussion with or have been in discussion with is included in this conversation?
Yes, this went through our full process, including the development task force. It did go to the planning commission as well, and got their formal recommendation, as well as informal meetings with different groups, including the county as well. As I mentioned, this will be the third thing that you're looking at here is an amendment to the ETJ agreement with the county. By state law, we have to have an agreement with the county saying who will regulate subdivisions within that ETJ area. Right now, that agreement says the city will regulate and review all subdivisions throughout the entire ETJ. What this revised agreement will do will pull that back so that we're only looking at subdivisions within our annexation program area. Everything outside of that will fall to the county to review those subdivisions. And the discussions on that came out of some discussions about the subdivision process where we've gotten a number of developments that have asked not to build to city standards, but to build to county standards. And we think that's probably okay when you're out at the periphery, when you're 3.5 miles outside the city limits, it probably makes sense. On the other hand, we've had some developments literally across the street from the city limits. We think that's very likely to become incorporated into the city at some point, and so those are the ones that we push more strongly for building to full city standards. And so by adopting this map and shrinking the area of our concern, then we can ensure that the areas that we care about we're holding to full city standards, but the areas outside of that, we're free to allow the county standards to apply in those areas.
So in 2020, when the census is done and it goes from 3.5 miles to 5 miles, have we reviewed what that 5 mile looks like and whether there's potential areas that need to be part of this ETJ conversation?
Well, yes, we've looked at the 5 miles, but in our reviews and all the meetings we've had, the boundary that you'll see, and I'll go on to that map now, we've got some zoom ins of it too, but none of that really. The only place we even touch the existing 3.5 mile is right up here, and again, that's not in our current annexation plan, but you can see here at least the current proposal for an interstate corridor comes right through there, and so we wanted to extend up north to make sure we're including that. But everywhere else, we stay within the 3.5 miles, so we don't foresee really any need once we go to 5 miles to extend out anymore in terms of the annexation plan.
Did you point out 2105 on that map so everybody has a relationship to what we're talking about?
I believe this is 2105, if I'm seeing that correctly.
It is.
And again, that's basically the end of my presentation. We do have some zoom-in maps. If you have questions about particular areas, we can go through looking at each area. But again, you're formally approving 3 different things today. One is the annexation plan, which says we're not annexing anything that the state requires to be in an annexation plan. Number 2 is the new annexation program, which are these gray areas. And then number 3 is authorizing the city manager to negotiate that revised agreement with the county.
Okay, do I have questions from Council? Billy?
I have a question, John. Could you point out 2288 on your map? And my question is, you mentioned the state park. I know Highland Range is, just right north of that, I guess it would be. Is that in the subject potential annexation?
Yes, that I believe that is within our potential annexation area, and 2288 I think is this on this map.
So all of this area in the dark gray is potential annexation area.
That's correct.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Do I have questions from Council? Any other questions? Okay, do I have a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Second.
Second by Harry. Do I have public comment on this item? With no public comment, we will take a vote. All in favor of approving as presented, say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, motion passes 6-0. Item B is consider ratifying COSA DC's resolution authorizing the use of sales and use tax funds in an amount not to exceed $60,000 to provide an economic development incentive to Jack P. Graves and Kimberly D. Graves, DBAs, Jays, Deer, and Wild Game Processing. And Guy, you're presenting.
Guy Andrews, Director of Economic Development, City of San Angelo Development Corporation. This item does come as a recommendation from the Development Corporation Board for ratification. I know that Shannon really wanted to be here because she has done just a magnificent job of promoting our business retention and expansion program. And this is, along with, I might mention, very good help from our Public Information Office with Anthony Wilson and Brian Groves. Been very instrumental in getting word out. This is a very good example of how the economic development sales tax benefits your local businesses, and not just larger businesses, but businesses, smaller businesses within certain industry codes that qualify. So this is a smaller business. What Jay's Deer and Wild Game Processing does is it provides custom processing and taxidermy services for wild game. The expansion that they're proposing is ready-to-eat meat, includes sausage, brisket, beef jerky, etc. The expansion would include a new 5,000 square foot facility at their existing location.
Where's the existing location?
I'm not exactly sure of it. I know it's just
South 270, it's on the city limit.
South 270. It is just inside the city.
Just so
limits.
everybody's aware where it is.
Right. They currently have 4 employees at this location. They anticipate hiring at least 4 more employees, but up to 15 additional employees within a 3-year period of time. The average salary is $35,000. We do require within the business retention expansion bylaws that they provide a salary that's at least the minimum prevailing wage for Tom Green County for that particular industry code, and they are, the prevailing industry is $34,160, so they are providing higher than the average prevailing wage. They anticipate investing $350,000 for a new facility and $200,000 in equipment for this, for a total capital investment of $550,000. Here's a breakdown of the incentives in regard to this. They would, once they make the capital investment amount of $550,000, we would provide them with a grant of $45,000. They must retain at least 4 of their current employees, but they have the ability to earn $1,000 per employee up to the creation of 15 full-time employees. So the total maximum amount that they might be able to earn in this grant is $60,000. So be glad to answer any questions you might have in regard to this.
Do I have questions from council? With no questions from council, may I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Billy moves to approve, a second by Harry. Do I have public comment? With no public comment, we will take a vote. All of those in favor of supporting this $60,000 from the Economic Development Group, say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, motion passes 6-0. Our next item is item C, which is a discussion and possible authorization to apply for a 2019 federal build grant application for College Hills. And we have Lance Overstreet here to present it.
Morning, Council. Lance Overstreet, Engineering Services. Today, I was just wanted to have the opportunity to talk to you guys about the some possibilities that we have with a grant application. One thing that the city has been doing is with all of our capital improvement projects, we've been kind of investigating potential grants that could help take some of that financial burden for us. And we have come across a build grant, which is put out by the U.S. Department of Transportation. They have yearly applications for this build grant, and so the 2019 portion of that build grant is an application that's going to be due very soon. These grants are competed on a federal level, and so that's something that we will be looking to as well. The application deadline for this is actually going to be coming up here in July. But what these build grants do is they actually look at what kind of improvements are being made in terms of the infrastructure, public health and safety things, how those things are being addressed, what it does in terms of connectivity with other items that you have in the area, and then also, too, how does it facilitate some competitiveness or economic growth and those types of things. And so the specific build grant that we're looking at is actually pretty nice in that it can actually fund up to a $25 million project. That award minimum is usually between $1 and $5 million, kind of depending on what your project is and your classification is. But the other nice thing is that it actually can be funded up to 100% with no match. And so rather than the traditional 80-20, because of the size of San Angelo being under 200,000, we're classified as rural. And so it actually could be up to 100% match and up to $25 million, which that is a significant project for the city if we were to receive that kind of funding. The other thing, too, is that the way the build grant is done is that every year they split those award funds up between what they call urban and rural. And so we're not necessarily going to be competing with the other urban items in other cities. We're actually going to be competing with rural cities that are under 200,000. And so it's a very high possibility. What we looked at is we looked at all of our capital improvement projects and decided which one that's currently kind of on the books we thought would actually be the most competitive. and compete the best with all the other stuff federally. And we really believe that College Hills is going to be that. Now, one thing that we have looked at is that if we apply for this in July and we are awarded it, we will be notified in November, and then we will have a pretty tight turnaround that we're going to have the design done, because we will have to award the construction side of that contract by September of next year. It says 2021, but I believe it's actually 2020. And so it is going to be a pretty quick turnaround on that, and then construction by 2026. Well, that lines up with the College Hills project very well. And one thing that we are looking at in terms of the College Hills project is the scope of it and how that fits in with what we're doing with this build grant. And so, as you guys know, the College Hills project that we have on the CIP is inside the loop. It goes from Loop 306 on the south side up to Avenue N. Some of the things that we're looking at for that project are the roadway reconstruction. We're looking at how some of the drainage is going to be contributing to that. As you guys know, College Hills, becomes underwater a lot. There at the Red Arroyo and southern down by the Sunset area. Also, too, the Red Arroyo Trail that's so popular, how we can interconnect that even more so. And so this project is actually looking at sidewalks that will actually go the entire length of that portion of College Hills all the way up to Avenue N. There will be a bicycle lane that connects all that up through Avenue N. So the benefit of College Hills is that we will have connectivity from Avenue N to the Loop and Sherwood to Knickerbocker all through the project and through the Red Arroyo Trail and some of the existing stuff. The other thing that you look at when you're talking about these build grants is how it impacts health, life, and safety. And as you guys know, anytime it gets any kind of rain, we have to shut down College Hills because of the flooding.
Take pictures this weekend to put in this application?
There is enough pictures floating around that we can see. We can definitely see. That Nixle alert that comes out to stay off the roads is because our first responders are out there trying to pull people out of the water that think they can just, drive
Turn around, don't drown. We remind everybody.
Yeah, turn around and don't drown, exactly. And so some of the things that this project is going to be able to do for us is actually offset some of the costs that were associated with this project. I pulled up the opinion of probable cost just so you guys can understand. The utility portion of that project is going to be about $4 million. The roadway, to just kind of go back with what's there, is going to be between $4 and $6 million. The drainage component to handle the underground stuff is going to be a minimum of $4 million. So we are looking at somewhere around a $14 million project without significantly impacting the navigability of College Hills in terms of flooding and in terms of rain events. And so if we were to able to receive this grant, it has a big benefit because then we can actually step up that project, get a higher level of protection for that roadway. Now, what I will tell council and so that the public understands is it's not going to solve the flooding in the floodplain. That's the whole idea of the floodplain being mapped, is so that people understand the floodplain is going to flood. But what it's going to do is potentially allow College Hills to be navigable even during certain storm events, so that way we can continue to have traffic on there safely and have a safe place for people to convey and drive and things like that. And so what we're asking council for on the approval of this is that anytime that we apply for a grant, we have to have council approval to apply for a grant through the city. And this is a reimbursement grant. And the reason why I mention that is because there are going to have to be some capital funds set aside for us to pay for things and then it be reimbursed. And some of the grants we've had in the past, that's been a little bit difficult because we have this vision that, okay, if we're getting $7 million, we can reduce our project by $7 million. Well, we still have to pay for that in advance and then have that reimbursed. So there will have to be some funds set aside to manage that project during the time of it. But if you could even offset a $14 million project, or if we were to able to redirect funds to have a higher level of protection, if we were to get a $20 million potential grant, that could make a significant impact in how that College Hills is navigated and things like that.
I would say put as many resources and as much resources as we can into applying for this grant. It's obviously something that we need, would benefit aggressively from, and so I certainly support the application, and I can't imagine someone would want to turn us down. So those pictures should sell the story.
We're going to include those for sure. Anything we can beef that up.
Do I have questions from council?
So move.
With a motion and a second, do I have any public comment on this presentation? With none, we'll take a vote. All in favor approving the grant application, say aye.
Aye.
With none
you, Council.
opposed, motion passes. Wait a moment. I have a.
Mayor, if I may,
Yes,
I
please.
failed to, we put out press releases, but it's tradition to introduce our new directors before the city council. And Lance Overstreet has been one of our proven high performers, and we're very proud to have him on staff as our new city engineer.
Congratulations. Well deserved. And with that, I am opening up the floor for public comment. With no public comment, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Motion passes 6-0. We'll move into item D, which is a public hearing and first reading of an ordinance amending Appendix A fee schedule by amending Article A6.005A Park Facility and Activity Fees for Youth Leagues and Tournaments. Tina, I think it shows you on.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. This is the fee that we brought to you when we first brought the first round of fee reviews for recreation, where we were proposing a range of fees, and we didn't have very good information for the cost of service, so you had asked us to bring that one back separately, and so this is bringing those back. Originally, there were 4 fees that were being proposed. We've narrowed it down to 2 that we're changing, and the first one is the track fee. The current fee is $5. We're proposing a fee of $5 per spectator and $10 per athlete for the track meets. The cost of service is $15.61, and the financial impact is $700.
And the cost of service is relative to the $10 for the athlete, or what are we looking at here?
Well, because we're charging 5 for spectators and 10 for athletes,
You're saying
we're
it's
kind of
15.
doing a hybrid, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do I have questions for Tina on this particular fee? And when you say track, what's track?
Mr. Casey, could you?
Morning, Brent Casey, Recreation Manager. Good to see you, Mayor. Good to see you.
Thank you.
See you, City Manager and City Council. Track refers to youth track program that we have every summer. We average about 140. This year we have 155 participants, and this particularly is for we hold a circuit meet, which other cities do not do, but we do hold a circuit meet to get the kids ready and kind of train them what happens at different meets when they go to other cities, and then the larger one eventually, and we kind of wing the parents off of the kids because they're not allowed on the track in the future. So with the $5 per spectator. I'm sorry?
Good luck on that one, Brad.
Yes, sir, absolutely, we understand. With the $5 for the spectator and the $10 per athlete, it does come up to the cost of service that was requested.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
The next fee is for recreation for tournaments. We currently don't offer this program, so the current fee is $0. The proposed fee would be $50, cost of service $48, and the financial impact $1,000.
So if it doesn't currently exist, have we never done this before, or are we just now attaching a fee to it?
I believe it's a new program.
Just now attaching a fee to it.
So you have been doing it? Okay. Just now attaching a fee to it. Sorry.
Okay. Next.
And that's it. That's all I have for you today.
Do I have
On
further
fees.
questions from council on these fees?
Move to approve as presented.
With a motion to approve by Harry and a second by Tommy, we will ask for any public comment. With no public comment, we'll take a vote. All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Item E is discussion and direction regarding hotel occupancy tax fiscal year 2020 budget allocations and funding of eligible capital asset needs. Tina?
Thank you, Mayor. So we wanted to bring this to you as our first budget topic for the fiscal year 2020 budget. The first slide I have here for you, just showing how much hotel occupancy tax we've collected in the last several years. And the reason I like to show you this slide is to just remind you of the volatility of hotel occupancy tax and that it operates similarly to the sales tax, and you don't want to over-obligate yourself with this fund in any one year, and that the surplus can then be used for projects or for other council directives. Any questions on that slide?
And do you have a comparison from 2015 to 2019 in terms of the number of additional hotel rooms available?
No, ma'am, I don't provide that kind of information. I'm sure we could get it for you.
I think it would be interesting to see where the growth is, whether it's in a percentage of occupancy or a combination of hotel rooms plus occupancy.
Okay. And then we just kind of wanted to show you where we are as far as year to date in this fund. And so hotel occupancy tax is at 68% of what we budgeted when we were 58% through the year. So it is operating well this year. We're projecting at year end, if budgeted flat for the rest of the year, to bring in almost $2.8 million in this fund, and we budgeted 2.242, as you can see here. The other expenditures, those are just based on what was budgeted, you know, the allocations that we have, which I'll show you on the next page. But if you have any questions on the revenues or expenses and year-to-date information, I'll be happy to try to answer.
Anybody have a question on this slide, this information? All right, move to the next slide.
So this is the hot fund distribution and the way we allocate out currently. We're obligated to $50,000 for the San Angelo Performing Arts Center, and that's for a management fee of the auditorium. That contract does expire on 9/30/19, so we're working with that organization to update that contract and get it renewed before October 1st. The San Angelo Chamber of Commerce receives $865,000 as a flat amount for their Convention and Visitors Bureau. The San Angelo Cultural Affairs Council receives 5% of whatever we budget. Actually, no. Not of whatever we budget, 5% of what we actually receive, excuse me. And so with the beginning budget of $2.242 million, that would have been $112,133. But of course, as we know, it's trending up, so they're actually going to receive a little bit more than that this year.
And you want to talk about when that contract expires?
That one expires 9/30/2020. The next organization is Downtown San Angelo. As you know, the city's committed to funding $75,000 of their operations. Half of it is here in the HOT Fund. Fort Concho receives a flat amount of $50,000. Civic Events is at 48%. Again, that $1,076,000 is 48% of the original budget. And so again, they're trending a little bit higher than that as well this year. And then Texas Bank Sports Complex receives a flat amount of $50,000. And so that's really what I have to present as far as slides go today, but I do want to get some direction from you all before we bring back the actual hotel occupancy tax budget when we do our budget workshops. And so if we could maybe discuss if there are going to be any changes to that budget or if we just want to stick with what we have here in front of you.
Harry, you have comments or questions?
Well, ever since I've been on this council, and I know the mayor feels very similar to this, we've got to either get everybody on a percentage or everybody on a dollar amount. We just cannot operate where we've got organizations on a percentage and other organizations on a dollar amount. And since we've got, looks like 5 on a dollar amount and 2 on a percentage, I would suggest that we move that particular way. We really need to get that spot so everybody understands what they're going to get every year.
Billy?
Mayor, I have something. I understand what Harry's saying, and being an accountant, I certainly defer to him on some things, but not on this. You know, I look at the civic events budget and the 48%. How long have we had this percentage for civic events, Tina?
Just one moment. The 48% has been as long as we've had the funds.
Okay. And, you know, I look at civic events and I think about all of the assets, because we talk a lot about the assets that contribute to the success of our city. And our civic events venues is certainly one of those areas. You know, we have the Coliseum and the River Stage and the Paseo, and this building even, I think, would come under this. And there's always stuff that needs to be done. I've heard that we have lost conventions here because we need to redo some things with our convention center. So whether everything's on a percentage basis or on a flat amount basis, I don't know what's the best, but I guess I don't see the downside of leaving this where it is at this point.
Can I make another comment, Mayor?
Yes, you may.
One of the things that Rick and Carl and I we've been looking at is, and Sid, is trying to make sure that we take some of those extra dollars that we've gotten from increases at the River Stage, the Coliseum, Convention Center, Paseo, all those things that are coming in there, and pick some of that dollars and set them aside in a fund balance, just like we do with every other division in the city, and let them utilize that money to go ahead and make the improvements in the facilities. We know that we've got issues at the Paseo and at the River Stage, and if we want to get bigger venues, more people there, we're going to have to make those improvements. We'll put that money back, and it's not to say that they can't come back to us and ask for additional money out of the hot funds already. We've done this in the last 2 years, and look at the improvements that we've made at the Coliseum. So I think if you put them on a regular budget with the idea that they can utilize some of that fund balance, put that money back in the fund balance every year, and make sure that if you've got major issues at any of these things, we take a look at what may be out there in hot funds that may be available. I think that's the way to go.
So may I
Yes,
ask
Billy.
Harry a question? So are you saying, Harry, that if we take some money and start a fund balance, that any one of these organizations would have access to that fund balance?
No. Fort Concho, for example, gets this $50,000 out of this hot fund. Now, they got many sources for their budget, but they utilize a fund balance just like every other division in the city does. What I'm saying is, from civic events standpoint, we really need to encourage them to get on a flat budget fee and then decide on what they're going to utilize. And if you'll take a look at their budget over the last 5 years, they've not utilized the 48% in any 1 year. That money has been, they can operate for less money than what that 48% is. But what they have done is come back to the council on occasion to ask for specific money out of that fund balance to go ahead and make the repairs to the Coliseum, some of the things that they've done here at the Convention Center. So they've not utilized, for example, $1,076,000. They're not projected to utilize that amount this year. You go back and look at their budget, they're putting money into a fund balance as it were right now.
Well, if you look at the first slide that Tina put up there, we have had some years that are not as good as 2019 or as good as 2015. So my concern with that, Harry, would be when we have those poor years, what would they do? Go to the fund balance?
Yeah.
Is
But
that what
still,
you're saying?
but
They're
Rick's
actually
got the
better
numbers
off.
right in front of him here.
They're actually better off on a flat fee during a poor year because they're guaranteed that obligated amount rather than a percentage of if it's a very, very low year for hotel occupancy tax. Does that make sense?
What we would need to do is, actually, Tina's done a really good job of putting some historical numbers together of what it took to operate the department. So what we would want to do, listening to Harry and Billy speak as well, is allow them to then look at what does it cost, what do they need to factor in maintenance dollars into that budget. So they could bring a proposal back that actually builds in maintenance dollars that then are budgeted every year, and those go back into a fund that they can use. Now, they might need additional dollars in addition to that for major projects, where they would come to y'all and say, okay, now we want to put a new roof on the Coliseum. It's going to cost $1 million. Can we look at additional hot dollars? But right now, we have historically really not built those dollars in. So we could bring a budget to you that actually builds those dollars in, and then they're more guaranteed that those are there for them to spend and not guessing on what the percentage is.
One of the biggest issues for me is the following, and that is the premise behind hot funds, and that is hotel occupancy tax funds. And specifically, the state law is the following. The requirement is summarized to mean the use must first contribute to putting heads in hotel beds. First and foremost, obligation for any funds received. So as we talk through this issue, we need to talk about how many heads and beds did the civic events create. because no conversation about percentage or dollar can be had without proving up hotel heads and beds, and it must be done on a regular basis. It must be, in fact, documented. If it's not documented, then one has to say that the funds, regardless of whether it's a set amount or a percentage, cannot be given to an organization who can't prove it up. And we need to ask those questions. So to me, it's about proving it up. I think if you take a look at it, and going back to your conversation on percentage versus dollars, historically, the Chamber of Commerce and the CVB, I should say, it shouldn't say Chamber of Commerce, it should say San Angelo Convention and Visitors Bureau, used to receive a percentage, an ongoing percentage. And the same thing happened, it is happening with civic events, is at the end of the year, they ended up with extra dollars, and those dollars had to be given back to the city of San Angelo because they couldn't be utilized in the time frame when the budget season ended. Consequently, previous councils set a dollar amount for the Convention Visitors Bureau, a dollar amount. And they, above all organizations on that list, put more heads and beds than anybody. That's by nature of what they do. Yes.
Mayor, while you're on that subject, I do want to point out that we started that flat dollar amount for the CVB in 2013 at an amount of $795,000. 2016, the council authorized an amount of $865,000, and they've operated on that amount fiscal years 16 through 19. I do know that they have a request for increasing that amount that's allocated to them, and so I do want to make you aware of that. Their contract expires 12/31 of this current year of 2019, and so if the council directed us to allocate those additional funds, it would probably be included in that new contract beginning January 1. The amount that they've requested is an additional $135,000 for a total amount of $1 million.
Billy, I can
Yes,
see a
Mayor,
question.
to your point, you know, it's almost like what came first, the chicken or the egg, because CVB would not necessarily be able to put heads in beds if we didn't have the venues to accommodate what people
Yes.
are coming here for. So, you know,
It includes hotel rooms.
Exactly.
And the hotel rooms have to come first before the others are available.
Exactly. And I do think that, and certainly we would have to see a report of some kind with the specific numbers, but I can't imagine that our civic events venues are not putting heads in beds. I can't imagine that that's not happening.
It just has to be documented.
Exactly,
by law.
exactly. So I just think we should go. So I'm not sure, to Rick's point earlier, should we just table this and get some of those facts and figures?
I think Tina was looking for guidance and direction from y'all. So if the direction is to lean toward a budget that is a number, then I would say, yeah, let them put that based on Tina's historical data, put the budget together and bring something back to y'all that factors in what I'm hearing is the maintenance component into it, knowing that some projects are bigger than that, and those will always require coming back to council. But historically, they've operated on percentage, so they've never asked for where they need additional staff or where they need additional maintenance money. They've just tried to work within whatever that percentage is that comes in. So yes, that was a long answer to let them put that together and bring it in the next discussion.
And the reality is we can't bring people here into the city unless our facilities are well taken care of, because people do expect a great event when they're here, and that means improvements that are competitive with other cities. And we need to make sure that our venues are competitive with other cities in terms of quality. I saw a hand up. I didn't see somebody. Daniel, were you going to say something?
No, ma'am. Rick just nailed it a while ago. Really, we just need that direction and to ensure that if we do want to set a set amount, that's what we're hearing, and that's all we really need that guidance on. Instead of having percentages out there, we have no issue doing the set amount and justification for that set amount as well, Mayor. So.
And it's not a punishment to anybody or anything. It's about being able to manage and plan. If you have a set amount, you know how to make a plan to live by, and a plan. The request would be to make sure that the dollar amount allows for their operation consistently and does not negatively impact their ability to deliver. So no one wants to punish anybody for anything. This is about managing dollars and managing improvements to facilities.
And
Yes,
Mayor, I
Tom?
agree 100% that we certainly don't want to punish anyone, but I would like to see, you know, the facts and figures to just confirm what you're saying and that we actually need to go with the set amount because, unfortunately, I'm not there yet. I understand I'm just one vote, and I see, you know, everybody's probably wanting to go with that flat amount, but I'm just not there yet.
Tom?
You know, one thing is we come forth with this budget and bring it here. Civic Events is unique in the fact that it does generate revenue. And so, I've got some calls from some people on there that said, okay, so we do these events, we've got our maintenance and things. What do we do if we generate revenue? I mean, what does our revenue actually go to and where do we set that? Let's say they have some good events that happen and generate some good revenue. How do we, I think something we need to consider is, and I got a phone call from Billy on this, but how do we put that back into the budget? I don't want to penalize them for doing a good job, but I certainly think budgeting a flat rate, especially in the off years, will be certainly beneficial. I don't think we're talking, you know, $50,000, $60,000 either way. And I see what you're saying, Billy, but I'm with the flat rate, but also want a little consideration given on, you know, if they make some revenue out of some events and have some good concerts, the incentive to keep pursuing that path ethically and properly, what they can do with those funds too.
And the department actually creates its own revenue budget, and so with that, if they increase their revenue budget, they can also increase their expenditure budget, which allows more room to put money into a maintenance account or a capital account or that kind of a thing.
Basically allowing those dollars to roll back in. We do that with the sports complex, for instance, so we could treat it somewhat like that.
They keep all of the positive revenue increases and allow to expense against it. So it's like most people run a budget.
So that when we sit down and talk with Carl and with Sid and the rest of the stakeholders, we will consider their revenue budget, make sure that they are budgeting enough that they are able to fund some of these projects and roll that money back into their maintenance.
Okay.
Mayor, if you don't mind, are you ready to discuss the changes to the CVB contract at this meeting, or would you like us to bring that back as well?
Well,
Mayor, I would recommend, Diane Bays is not here anyway, so I would maybe.
I think Bruce Spartain is here to speak for her. Okay. You want to come forward, Bruce?
Council, Mr. Valenzuela, it's a pleasure to be here before you. I'm Bruce Partain, President and CEO of the San Angelo Chamber of Commerce. And Diane is crushed not to be here because she would love to tell you some stories about some of the successes. And none of us can do it as well as Diane. She is in California right now talking to several hundred travel journalists and meeting planners. And so she's bringing back, no doubt, dollars for the future right at this moment. The CVB's been very active this year, as you well know. And Diane has expanded our reach to Canada and to Mexico. Looks like East Coast, West Coast. So she's trying to get the name of San Angelo out there. So the dollars expended by our CVB are really, for the most part, marketing dollars, and the increase that has just been sort of in a draft internal budget at this point. I think all but about $10,000 that Diane has outlined would go towards further marketing. Part of it is also servicing, however, because of this success, it takes a little bit more to actually take care of the visitors coming in, even just, you know, the goodie bag that you might have for a conference or a convention or a sporting event, you have a few more of them. So that's the kind of challenges we really like to address. But I'd be glad to talk to you in general terms if you'd like to know, but we are prepared to put together a detailed budget, as we always do, on those expenditures.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
I have a question. I think it may be for Tina. So these additional funds, where would they come from, Tina?
If we kept the budget flat next year at the roughly $2.25 million, there is enough capacity there. If we move to a flat fee for civic events, there's capacity there to make some of these changes. And so if we were directed to bring that information back, we would show you how we could fit it within this budget, or if we couldn't, then we would show you that as well.
So you're asking us to approve something today?
No, ma'am, I just need direction today.
She's asking that we give her direction to, quote, number one, plan civic events at a dollar amount, not a percentage amount. The Cultural Affairs Council is by contract 5%, so that cannot be changed because it is by contract. And it would be to give consideration to increased dollars for the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And
Okay,
she
so-
would then put together that plan and
Okay.
bring it back to us for review in terms of dollars
Okay.
relative to expected revenue coming in for the 2019-2020 budget.
So we're not being asked to approve an additional amount for the chamber?
Not today. We
Okay,
are
all right.
asking that with that information and that input, that they put together a proposed budget for consideration. Tommy, is that a motion?
Yes, I would work that direction, the flat amount, and bring us the details, yes.
Is there a second?
This is just direction today.
This is direction, so we don't need a vote. So in fact, you
Got
have
direction?
direction now. Thank you.
Do you want to take any public comment? There's some people from Civic Events.
No, 'cause we're not
Board out
having
here.
a
Okay.
motion. All right, we will now move into 8, the closed session. The executive session under the provision of Governmental Code, Title 5, Open Government, Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, exceptions to requirement that meetings be open under the following sections. A, Section 551.071, 2, consult with attorney when the governmental body seeks the advice of its attorney on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with this chapter regarding water rights and contracts for Lake Nasworthy. And item B, Section 551.072, to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if deliberation in an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the position of the governmental body in negotiations with a third person regarding Lake Nasworthy residential lot leases. With that, it is currently 9:47 a.m. We shall return from the closed session an hour at 11 o'clock. With that, we are closed for closed session. Out of closed session, it's 11:14 a.m. And follow-up and administrative issues, item 9, consider items discussed in closed session. So I think, Tommy, you have some items.
I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute a diversion facilitation agreement with Bentwood CC LLC in accordance with the discussions and direction given.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any public comment? With no public comment, I would ask that we then take a vote. So all in favor of the item that Tommy just presented, say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, motion passes 6-0. Item B, consider approving various board nominations. They are the Construction Board of Adjustment and Appeals, so Bill Ford, SMD 2, to a second term ending February 2021. Would council like me to do a vote on each of these individually or as a group?
Do them as a group.
Then we'll do them as a group. So then the second one is Keep San Angelo Beautiful, Emily Lloyd, SMD 5, to a first term ending September 2021. The Public Art Commission, Terry Covert, SMD 1, to a third term ending April 2021. Heidi Meyer Brooks, SMD 5, to a third term ending April 2021. Julie Raymond, SMD 6, to a third term ending April 2021. And Richard Round from the mayor to be a first full term ending April 2021. Do I have a motion to approve the above appointments?
So moved.
Second.
Any public comment on the names and positions as read? With none, then we will take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? No. Okay, motion passes. All of them have been approved. And now we're going to item C, announcements and consideration of future agenda items. Do I have any from anyone on council? With no one on items to be for future agenda, then we will take an adjournment.
Move we adjourn.
A second?
Second.
Any public comment? With none, we will take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Meeting is adjourned.